Welcome to the HEARTset Leadership Podcast. My name is Lisa Virtue. I'm your executive coach and host. In today's episode, I'm joined by Angela Tait, Chief Talent Strategist, CEO of Tait Consulting, author of the Human Capital Playbook, investor, and podcast host for working moms. Together, we speak about what it means to truly lead humans, especially in a world rapidly changed by technology and AI. We explore topics like the evolving landscape of talent management, the irreplaceable value of human connection, and the critical partnership between leaders and HR teams. We talk about where AI can be implemented to help the humans in their work and where human connection really matters. Angela shares practical insights on fostering people-first cultures, leveraging personality assessments for self-awareness, and supporting employee growth and retention. Whether you're an executive, HR professional, or emerging leader, this episode is packed with actionable advice to help you lead with empathy and resilience. Let's go. This is the HEARTset Leadership Podcast. We're here on the beat of modern leadership to help you crush your goals without crushing your soul or your teams. Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with me today about being a human and leading other humans. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience?
Sure. I'm Angela Tait. I'm a chief talent strategist, CEO, and founder of Tait Consulting, which empowers leaders to be in their zone of genius with hiring, training, and coaching. I also have a book that I recently launched, The Human Capital Playbook, which is all about the hiring, inspiring, and retaining of talent. And then I'm an investor of ARC, which is a headband supporting women feeling confident in their skin. And then I have a podcast for moms that are juggling motherhood and work and business.
I love it. We can talk about all the things today, like leading other humans at work, but also at home in the next generation of good people. Yeah, it's so much to carry, right? That weight to carry. And now we've got this AI element that's coming into teams and recruiting. I'm sure
Mhm.
you're seeing it all over the place. So, what kind of challenges are you seeing right now that leaders are facing in this current climate?
Well, talking about hiring and AI, I talked to a leader, a business owner the other day, and she was mentioning how her daughter is going through the interview process in New York, and AI is like going through that first round, and it's getting on a video with AI and how awkward it feels and how she doesn't like it. And so understanding that AI is great with automation and maybe behind the scenes with taking out, certain resumes that don't fit for this specific role. But I think getting AI to be people facing feels ingenuine, and people are reevaluating, right? The company, the role when that type of stuff happens, because like you mentioned, human to human connection is so powerful. And when you have a robot that's talking to you, it doesn't feel like the company actually cares. And people are big on that. They want to feel valued. They want to come in knowing that their leader, their employer is investing in them, and therefore they are investing in the company with their time and energy. And so that's a huge piece that I've seen shift in the last year with AI on the scene, is not just taking a back seat and maybe going through some of the resumes, but now they're like facing that other individual in an interview.
Yes, it could be so awkward, can't it? Like even just having conversations. I have a hard enough time talking to the camera by myself. Like when I record courses or, a podcast episode, just looking at the camera, I'm like, ugh, I feel like it's soulless behind there. And,
Mhm.
and then when you're talking to a robot that's mimicking it, yeah, there's something disingenuine, like you're saying, that comes through.
Yeah, and I mean, there has been great strides in AI. I was watching something this morning on how you bring AI into your business for ads, right? I mean, how these people that they look like you, they sound like you, but it's not really you.
Hmm.
And it looked good. It looked good as the ad was being played, but I think there's still certain things that have not been perfected that someone that's smart can tell the difference between a real person and a robot or AI.
Yeah. So speaking to like an HR team, I can imagine that it's really interesting with these, like this pendulum is swinging, right? okay, AI comes on the scene and now everyone's throwing the spaghetti everywhere on the wall. There's products for every component, it feels like, including like coaching too and consulting, and throw all the data in there and have ChatGPT tell you what to do. And there's an element of yes, and
Mhm.
there's also a time and place like us as humans need to be involved. So on the HR side, can imagine, have family members and colleagues too that work within HR teams, that it can be a struggle to decide where you're getting that pressure from above or from your goals, where you need to bring in those tools. And then where does the human element feel like it's the most valuable and most effective? Because, like, as an employee going to an HR team and talking to a robot about your grievances, right, I can imagine is not the best use of a tool like that. What is your experience with seeing teams go through these things?
Yeah, so much. I'm in an HR group called SHRM, right? Society of Human Resources Management. And there's been a lot of layoffs in HR because AI. And one of the things I was talking about with another HR leader is the employee relations piece. And that plays a bigger factor than some business owners, leaders that are not in HR realize. Even being in office and when I was internal with HR, the amount of times, like, someone just kind of walks by and they're like, "Oh, you're in the office," and they wanna talk to you. It's really that check-in moment that can make or break that person from staying, working out a problem. A leader might have a difficult team member, and they're like, "Okay, there's someone a sounding board I can talk to about this," instead of just letting it weigh on them and get to the point where now they just wanna fire, they're so frustrated, or same with the employee, like there's been continual moments that make them quit. So it really is that those times that you are not accounting for in the HR daily routine that makes a huge impact on retention. And retention goes back to the bottom line, right? Of if you don't have high turnover and you're saving the cost on hiring and training and having people walk out the door with all of this knowledge about the company that is sometimes crucial because you don't have all of those SOPs in place. And these are just people that have been there since the beginning. I mean, there's so much that AI cannot do yet when it comes to that human connection, those check-ins, again, the employee relations, that plays a big factor in keeping people there.
Yeah. So I know you've stood up HR teams from scratch too, right? Where like new
Mhm.
businesses that are finally running at a place where they need an HR team. So we all know the value of HR. Where do you see the founders and maybe board of trustees, people that are in decision making that aren't necessarily face to face with employees? Where do you see them understanding the value of that partnership with HR? Where do you see that they see the value? Because for me, like, my immediate thought is, "Oh, it's risk management," right? Like, that's typically where it comes from, like, "Oh, we need to mitigate this risk, so we need an HR team." So, of course, there's value with that, but how do you help them understand these crucial items, right? So in recruitment, they need face to face. Like, what kinds of things have you worked with those decision makers to see the value?
Yeah. And I want to bring up a quick story that I mentioned in my book as well. And it sticks with me. So, when I first got hired into this company I was working for, they didn't have HR. There was a team of 10. And the CEO was like, "Why do we need HR?" He said that to the
Mhm.
COO and general counsel. And he's like, "Just trust me, we do." And I remember coming in, and again, there was probably around 10 employees. This is January 2020.
Oh,
And
gosh.
can you imagine if they didn't have HR in-house when COVID broke out in March? We also hired over 100 people that year,
Wow.
because it was a company that focused on real estate investment, property management, construction. So there was different lines of the business, and they were growing rapidly because during COVID, right? Like the real estate market just took off.
Mhm.
So, one, you have like these employees that are on site too, like in construction and property management. So, I was navigating that with the leaders and the employees that didn't feel safe, or trying to figure out where was the balance of just all the changes that happened during
Mhm.
that time. Well, that CEO that said, why do we need HR, at 10 employees? Well, we had reached maybe at the end of that year, there was a lot of turnover with construction and different
Mhm.
things. But I think, once we got to between that 50 and 100 mark, he's like, yeah, now I understand why we need
Ding.
HR. Because not only in that year was there like the COVID situation and the hiring, which HR plays a factor in, but it was also creating an employee handbook that they had not had, performance management to keep track of like these different metrics and make sure people were staying on target. There were things that came up. So helping support the leaders and firing them or documenting situation where it goes back to your risk management. Because then we did have people coming back that felt like they were laid off for the wrong reasons. And so luckily all the documentation was there. So there is that risk factor, but it was also seeing people that flourished and grew in those like 3 years that I was there, people we brought in that as the company continued to scale, they kept moving up the ladder because we had good training and supporting like, okay, this is what metrics look like, but this is how you move to the next level. Or, there's so much that went on behind the scenes with like employee relations too. There was acquisitions of other companies coming in that HR played a factor in with getting everyone on board for health insurance and integration of the different cultures from one company to the other and making sure there was strong retention and getting that alignment in place. And so it's like these factors. Sometimes you hear HR and immediately you think of, yeah, compliance and risk.
Mhm.
But it is like that bigger picture that also plays a factor of career development. Because I shouldn't say the number one reason, but a big reason people leave companies is because they don't feel like they're challenged. And a lot of times it's just like people are not supporting in their growth.
Mhm.
And so they feel stagnant, they feel complacent. And if you have a top performer, they want to continue growing and learning and feeling supported to get to the next level, not only financially, but also in title bumps and being more strategic, right? And having leadership positions where they get to grow and support others in the organization. And so looking at all those different factors is such a key part of the business to, again, helping support and retain those people coming on board.
Yeah, I hear this all the time when people are looking to make a change in an organization. Of course, it can be their leader, but the professional growth, right? Where it's like, oh, I like who I work with or who I work for, but I'm just stuck. I'm like
Mhm.
stagnant and I want to do more. I have aspiration to learn and grow. And like you said, there's benefit to that, but for what I see, a lot of it just boils down to like what is intrinsic. They just get bored, right?
Mhm.
Quite frankly. And then they feel like, where am I going with my life? I'm not learning
Exactly.
anything new. Yeah. So you've already mentioned so many great ways leaders can partner with HR, founders when they're thinking like, at what point should I bring HR in? Of course, we all would love to say, do it right away. But that's
Yeah.
not realistic, even financially sometimes. So assuming like things are kind of running well and leaders are in their seats and HR is established, what are some of the things you've seen that really effective, good leaders do differently?
One is check-ins. I think those are huge with individuals on your team, but then also group meetings, because then it helps get alignment of what is the goal this week? How can I support you? And so if people are feeling stuck, there sometimes people don't feel comfortable or they feel like the leader's too busy. So by creating that safe space that someone can check in and hear what's going on and how they can help this person supported to continue moving forward, whether it's in their career or with a project, or maybe they're struggling with someone else on the team, they're able to check in and get that feedback. And even maybe it's how they're leading, right? Their team. And if they've created that safe space and that rapport, then that person, that individual might feel comfortable enough to open up and say, hey, you said something to me that didn't feel good last week. And I want to talk through this because I want to be on the same page, or all of those things help build trust and respect for the leader and for the employee to, again, feel that safety, inclusivity, that sense of belonging. A lot of people, they also leave because they don't feel like they belong on that team or in that company, right? They feel like an outsider. No one understands me. And so by having those check in and those group meetings, it's continuing to build that trust and relationship between others so people feel tied in. One of my first careers, I stayed for 4 years. Like, I did not necessarily love the job. It definitely didn't challenge me. I mean, I stayed for other reasons, but one of the big piece was the people that were hired in that company. I loved the people I worked with. And that is what makes people stay longer, is not only a good leader, because people do leave leaders versus companies, but also the people that you're surrounded with every day. It's your second family. You spend a lot of time at work. And so if you have good relationships, people will stay a lot longer in a company. And again, I think it goes back to the bottom line. If you have people staying longer and continuing to grow and invest in the company because you're investing in them, then your company is going to continue to flourish.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, so we were talking about different things for leaders to do. So check-in is probably one of the biggest things that I always tell leaders to do. And then, and creating that safe space and whatnot. And then another thing that leaders can do is really setting up the tone on the hire. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't recognize how important it is to set that candidate experience and the person you're bringing in that's going to be a part of a team, setting the tone in the beginning into like onboarding. That first week, people are usually deciding, like even sometimes within the first few days, if they're going to stay long term at a company. And so that like hiring and onboarding piece is vital to like help set someone up for success, like with expectations of the role. And so having metrics in place, like people always are going back and forth, right? Like remote workers versus hybrid in office. And I always tell people it shouldn't matter if they're working 8 hours or 4 hours. If they like have strong metrics and they're meeting their goals, then it shouldn't matter if they're more efficient in getting their work done in 4 hours. That should be okay versus having to draw something out for 8 hours. The goals are clear and they're hitting all those numbers. They shouldn't be penalized.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. For any salaried employee listening to this, resonates so much. I'm doing the work that you're paying me to do. Why are you making me sit at a desk, or why are you making me just be?
Yeah.
Right? I can go do other things. Yeah. And then there's that balance too of like the moving target, right? So we see that too, where it's like, oh,
Mhm.
well, great. Let's make your goals even harder because you have time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like you're getting paid the same as Sally, who's next to you, but she's doing her work in 8 hours. You're getting it done in 4. And so now you're penalized because you have to do actually double the work
Right.
because you're more efficient with your time. And so you're more resourceful or, you're
Yeah.
smarter at certain things. So it's looking at that too. And I've heard a lot, right, from high performers. The weakest person on your team, sometimes that high performer will sink down to a lower performance because you're like, wait, I'm getting paid the same as this person. They're doing half the
Yeah.
work. And so looking at that too is making sure you keep your A players happy and rewarded and continuing to challenge them.
Yeah, I love everything that you suggested because what you're recommending is be present, be available. And I've worked with a lot of leadership coaches over my time too, and being a leader myself, that the matrix of high performance, when you identify who those high performers are and high potential, that's typically where people neglect because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, they're good. Well, you're
Mhm.
good, right? Just like the child, we hear the stories of like, nobody paid attention to me because I was getting A's. And so my sibling over here got more attention because they needed more support. And so remembering like they're going to be at risk too if you don't pay attention to them and
Mhm.
be available for them. Don't just say, oh, everything's good. I won't meet with you. That's actually when you should be
Yeah.
proactive, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. So being visible, being available, not, also see a lot of leaders just cancel those one-on-ones because maybe they an agenda item, right?
Yes. Yes. They're like, oh, we don't really have anything to talk about. I'm like, there's always
Always.
and you creating that safe space and like not necessarily having an agenda, something else pops up. And it is horrible when people cancel meetings because then the message that you're telling that person is you're not important. And I try to emphasize that to leaders. Like, if you have to cancel it, but make sure you rescheduled it for that same week because that is the message you're continuing to tell and I've talked to people like that. Oh, they're always canceling our meetings. So then that means to them, like, other things are taking priority over me. And there's these underlying messages, unconscious things that are coming about that are then creating a narrative for this individual that could potentially have them leave.
Yeah. And we know leaders are busy and they've got so much going on. So it's taking that extra beat and saying, I need to signal how important this person is. It's not about,
Mhm.
I'm going to give you your time back, right? Okay, we'll save you time. You don't have to do this meeting now. It's like you have no idea what's on their mind or heart and what they want to share with you. And most people just go, okay.
Yeah.
They don't fight for it, right? Like, no, we really need to meet. Most subordinates don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
it's so impactful to
Mhm.
keep those meetings, show how they're a priority. If you have to cancel, reschedule right away, emphasize the importance of that meeting and how valuable it is. Because at the end of the day, everyone's busy, right?
Mhm.
And it's like you have to make time for the things that are important and a priority. People on your team need to be a priority, or they'll find someone else who values their time and energy.
Yeah, and now as we're talking about all these AI tools and everything, it feels like that craving for that human connection is even more important. And like,
Mhm.
if you're having your team go and practice working with ChatGPT or whatever the tool is that you're employing, and then you cancel your human meetings, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden they start to get like even a little emotionally reliant, even if they don't want to, all these robots and
Yeah.
versus you as their leader, and so you can keep a pulse check and understand what's going on. Yeah. So important. I
Yeah,
like
and I feel like even sometimes when the business is, like, running smoothly or you're like, "Oh, we don't really have anything to check in," I mean, that's even a time where getting to know someone on a personal level, right? Like, even though it seems
Mhm.
like things might be going well, maybe their dog just died, maybe
Right.
they're having a challenge at home, and so allowing, again, that space that doesn't have an agenda, and so you can create that space, and maybe the meeting ends early, but maybe it doesn't, maybe it runs over because then you're having, like, this deeper connection and building that relationship up so it's not just
Mhm.
surface.
Yeah, for sure. I'm switching gears slightly. I'm curious. So, thinking about the leader themselves, this is how they can show up for their team. There's this self awareness piece I know you're really passionate about too, right? Where leadership best practices, a lot of times they focus on that, but then they focus on how to have a strategic conversation or performance coaching conversation, which are all so important. But when it comes to like that self awareness piece and understanding yourself as a leader, pieces do you see that leaders should really spend time on with themselves?
I mean, I was just mentioning this to someone this morning. The Hari window
Mhm.
uh, can be beneficial, right? Sometimes you know certain things about yourself, and then there's things that others know about you that you know about yourself, and then the other quadrant is like things that you don't know about yourself, but other people know about you, and then there's like the stuff that you don't know yet, and other people don't know, and so there's like those blind spots. And so getting feedback from others, 360-degree feedback. I recently did this with a company with two leaders. And it was helpful for them to understand like how other colleagues saw them, how their direct reports saw them, people above them, and getting that insight to be able to show up better as a leader and work on those opportunities of improvement, understanding the strengths, how you can lean into those is something that's very valuable with self awareness. And there's other ways that you could do self awareness, right? You can do assessments like Enneagram or Myers Briggs, DISC, and then read those and understand how those interact with other people on your team. That might be a different assessment or type, and learning how to work with those other types of people, reflecting when something goes wrong, you make a mistake, like thinking back on what was your piece in it? How could you have shown up differently? So, journaling, assessments, evaluations, reading, feedback are all big ways to have more awareness on your leadership style, on you as an individual.
Wonderful. So I have to ask because I'm really curious what your response is going to be on this. Out of all the personality assessments and team assessments out there, do you have any favorite?
You know, I used to be a big fan, and I still am actually, of Myers Briggs. And it's probably just because I understood it a lot. I have read this book, Please Understand Me Too, by David Kiersey. It's great. I'm an ENFP, and it takes you through the different personality types. It talks about who you are as a parent or at work, as a leader, how you interact with the other types of personalities in the world. And so I am a big fan of that. Recently, I've been getting more into Enneagram. And so I'm reading a book about that right now. So I'm diving deeper. So I think it's those two pieces. It just seems like there's so much there to uncover. The Road Back to You is the book I'm reading that dives deeper into the Enneagram. And so just those seem to be really powerful ones. I know there's a big push on DISC and PI, predictive index, at work and in corporate situations, but I lean to the other two more consistently.
I love it. I'm also an ENFP.
But you are. Well,
I
that's why we
was
get along so well.
Yeah, I know, that's why we can relate. I was an ENFJ, and then after I had my daughter, our team did that I was with did another assessment, and my J turned to a P. Isn't that fascinating?
That is interesting. So
Yeah.
you might have been on the cusp. I feel like that happens a lot when maybe it's like you're really close. And
Mhm.
so like different times of life maybe push you to one side versus the other.
Yeah, in different ways you have to interact in your world based on situation. In that case, becoming a mom.
Yes. And what about, do you know your Enneagram?
I do not. No.
Oh,
Feel like I did it years ago, but I didn't keep that record. Yeah.
I'll have to,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be curious what you are. You probably are. I mean, I'm assuming, right, they're probably similar. If you're an ENFP, maybe you're a 7. That's what I am on Enneagram, a
Yeah.
7. So I wonder if you're the same because
Well, I saw your post about being a 7 on LinkedIn, and
yes.
I was reading what the image you posted of the text, and I was like, "Ooh, I can relate to a lot of this." So I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I love assessments just to understand yourself more, right? And then take what you agree with and then be able to explain to others, right? As well. Like leaders showing up and being able to express themselves authentically really means they need to understand who they are and what the goals are, and that you're not trying to contrive anything or show up in a way that is, I guess, for lack of a better word, inauthentic. So your team can sniff it out, can't they?
Really gives you communication and words around certain stuff and
Mhm.
can be very validating. I was taking those pictures actually, and I was like showing my husband, like, look, this is about me, like learn about me. Because recently, and this is why it was just really coming true for me. I've been like planning a lot of adventures. And I'm like, let's travel here, let's do this. And in this book, it was talking about how and I wasn't really aware of this, but it was like sevens, they sometimes avoid pain by like planning their next, like, adventure, like, something to look forward to,
Oh.
positive experience, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I avoiding?" And it kind of, like,
Yeah.
helped me step back and, like, reflect, like, "Oh, I didn't even realize I was doing this," right? Because this is just a natural habit that I guess 7s, like, go through
Mm.
with, and so, it was helpful for me to also give that context to him, like, he just thinks, maybe I'm avoiding stuff or, like, "You're just wanting to spend more money," or this like, he's putting his own narrative because his
Right.
personality type is different, and so to understand it, then I was able to verbalize to
Mm.
him or like show him some pictures and have a conversation
Yeah.
that was really impactful for him, not like thinking I'm trying to spend our money or not focusing on things that might be a priority right now.
Mm.
It was just like unconsciously trying to avoid some painful things that might be happening in the background. And so
Mm.
I think that's how being a leader and explaining to your team like certain things that come up, it gives that understanding to your team and to yourself sometimes when you're not aware, to move the needle forward or have those conversations that can be difficult when you don't have the words behind them or you don't understand it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Giving you the words. And then also to add to that with your teams, also not stereotyping or bucketing people into that, right? I've seen teams do a bad job of it too, where they're like, oh, that's because you're a blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, let's not use this as it's like weaponizing it.
Yeah.
People will change, ebb and flow, but for you to use it for yourself and how you show up and how you can share with others and know when you're out of alignment,
Mhm.
right? Like, so for me, I can relate to that too. The planning of the adventures and travel is so important. And I want my daughter to be exposed to all of it. So I'm in the thick of that right now for this year for us. And with that said, it's also like the showing up and going, okay, because I need an adventure when I don't have that, I
Mhm.
can also show up in a way that with some angst. So I need to balance like that hopefulness with the contentment. Yeah.
Mhm.
So interesting. I use it with my husband too. Every time I do a Perselis, that's what I'm like. If it, especially if it's free, I'm like, okay, I want you to do this one too. And what do you think is correct for me and your observation, that outsider feedback?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like yeah, I'm like, Do you feel like this is true?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely."
Right. I love it. Awesome.
What is
Well,
your husband? Do you know with the Myers-Briggs?
He is an is it INFP maybe? I think that's what I was.
Okay.
Yeah, this was quite a few years ago. That's a good question. I need to look back. And I have a couple other assessments that we've done. So, like the insights colors,
Yeah.
the blue, red, yellow, green. He's a blue and I'm a red and yellow. And so
Mm.
we show up very opposite in a lot of ways that we approach things. And we use that as language quite often. He's like, oh, yeah, I think I'm doing that because I'm that blue, right? It was a blue that I was. Sometimes he'll speak to it in that way. It's like, that's definitely how I'm approaching this. It's
Yeah, I
all
mean, it's such a great framework to have these tools that you can have as, I don't wanna say leverage, but, like, you're able to approach a person or a situation a lot more delicately and kind of
Mhm,
a fun, playful way too, which I feel like sometimes it's nice to have at work because sometimes things can be so serious, which there's
mm,
a time and a place, but, like, having that playful spirit and getting to know different people's personalities, I think that also makes someone feel more understood. And when you're on a team and you're working together and you're just like, I was just talking to an HR leader this morning and she was like, one leader is like, she's like this on the PI index and the other one's like on the opposite side. So she's like, we're constantly talking past each other. And I'm like,
mm,
and so she was saying how it's kind of an X where she's on one side of the scale and the other leader's on the other side of the scale. I'm like, well, that makes sense. But you have that, again, that language to be able to understand why you're doing that because you're more of an introvert, she's more of an extrovert, like
ah,
whatever your different patterns are, the way you're experiencing life, it's all coming across. So having that understanding is
ah.
so valuable.
And it's easier to show up with empathy and
Yeah.
also leverage those differences too, right? And have that diversity of thought and
Hmm.
personality on your team, which is can be so beautiful when people acknowledge it and
Yes. Yeah.
embrace it. Love it. Angela, thank you so much for your time today. I better wrap us up. I would love to hear what you tell people about your book. If you want to share a little bit more about like who should read your book, I feel like everyone could get value out of it, but what is your ideal audience and message there? And then also how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my book is for leaders, business owners, HR. It really is helping you go through the process of why HR is beneficial, but not only that, but why people first culture is the way to go, especially with AI on the scene. Putting your people first is what's going to keep your organization growing and thriving and retention high and your profit continuing to soar. So the book is kind of it's like broken down into three sections with like the hiring piece and what that looks like on the candidate experience, and then inspiring your employees to continuing to be engaged and productive. And then that retention piece of like, how do you tie it all together and support that long term one?
Love it. Really, the message too today I'm hearing loud and clear is leverage tools like AI to help the humans that work for you. Don't replace the human connection with it.
Yes, yes. So true. Like there's so much that AI can do and support us on. And I think that they're great tools and I'm excited for AI. But also be mindful. I think that's the other thing. If AI has created some fear, right, of people losing their jobs.
Mhm.
Um, and oh, am I going to get replaced? And something I heard recently on a podcast is that Tony Robbins was mentioning is not only are people like kind of fearful of that, but also looking at because our work is tied into sometimes our purpose, our meaning, our identity, is also taking that time to like reevaluate who you are outside of your job
Mm,
and helping upskill people that are in your company for other opportunities that AI might be taking over certain jobs.
mhm,
Like, how can you skill people to recognize they're more than their job, but like also have other areas in the business that they're able to support on that might not use AI. So yeah, but people can find me also on LinkedIn. I talk a lot, as you mentioned, the post I did the other day on the Enneagram and understanding that awareness, how it relates to leadership. So LinkedIn is a platform I'm on often. And then also on Instagram, Tait, Tait underscore consulting is another place that I'm posting pretty often.
wonderful. We'll follow you at all the places.
Thank
Thank
you.
thank you so much, Angela. I really appreciate
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for joining today's conversation. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to leave us a 5-star review in support. If you would like to take this conversation further and continue strengthening your leadership heartset, check out HEARTsetStudio.com and subscribe to our HeartWire newsletter. HEARTset Studio is also available to connect on your leadership development goals and initiatives for you and the other leaders in your organization. Contact us today through the website. And most importantly, thank you so much for all you do for the other humans in your life. We know that you show up with heart time and again, and it is most appreciated.